Welcome to Climate Conversation with Chowdhury, Climate Action Pathways, episode 48. Climate is changing. Whole planet is facing catastrophes. And IPCC AR6 report in its working group 1, in its summary for policymakers, alerted us in the red. It is like danger signal number 10 in some part of the world. And we have seen more intensive flooding, inundation, forest fire, drought, desertification, even cold waves, heat waves, whatnot, because of climatic changes. IPCC first assessment report alerted us long before. Then IPCC assessment report, second, third, fourth, fifth, now sixth in number. And 30 years passed by. We have crafted the Climate Convention, Framework Convention in 1992. And Conference of Parties kicked off from 1995, the first COP1 in Berlin in 1995. Then in 1997, we crafted the Kyoto Protocol to cut back our emissions. Emissions of the Annex 1 countries, at least 5% from 1990 level. But that didn't happen. In 2015, we have crafted the landmark Paris Agreement in COP21. Now we are heading towards COP26 in Glasgow, though it was supposed to be held last year, last November. But because of COVID, it has deferred to this year, and from 31st October, the Leaders Summit will kick off in Glasgow, then up till November 12, COP26 will continue. We have seen last week in New York, Climate Week. United Nations General Assembly also had its debate. Many head of states and governments are there, but not much places, not much ambition raised. The nationally determined contributions submitted so far, updated NDCs, cumulatively, is not nearby 1.5 degrees temperature. So how best we can update most ambitiously our NDCs? Glasgow is the last train to be embarked upon. Last chance for the humanity to belt tighten, to phase out carbon, fossil fuel, coal, to send to the museum. Because youth are also speaking out. How the youth feel right now, only less than 28 days to go to Glasgow. Can we ramp up our ambition, ramp up climate finance significantly to cut back emissions, to keep 1.5 degree global goal of Paris Agreement alive? These are huge, huge challenges confronting the host UK. How Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of United Kingdom, can handle it, or Alok Sharma, incoming COP26 President, will hammer on. What role Joe Biden, US President, is going to play over there? What role new Chancellor of Germany, with support from Green Party, are they going to phase out fossil fuel? Are they going to invest in renewable energies? These are the key questions. Non-market mechanism, rule book of Paris Agreement. So what is your take? Steve Konings, you can start the conversation.
Sorry, I didn't get your last point that you mentioned. Can you repeat that?
See, what is your expectation
okay.
from this Glasgow Conference of Parties, COP26, as a say Boys of the Year?
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of background knowledge on this. However, something I do know and that I was disappointed in is the Paris agreements were the eventual outcome in 2016. It was
2015.
Yeah. Whilst in these agreements, the Western countries did not have to pay for their past emissions. So there was this proposal of the Brazil agreements, if I remember correctly, where they had to basically pay for, or they were offered to also pay for their background emissions in the Industrial Revolution. And I hope that
historical emissions. Since Industrial Revolution.
Yeah. So, and I think this is a very important topic that the Western countries did not agree on in 2015, because it is partially because of this Industrial Revolution that the economy of these countries has been able to grow at the pace that they grew, and where therefore the inequality between the lower income countries and the Western countries in these days are so big. So I hope that something like this will be proposed again, and that there will be a bit more a focus on this, especially because these emission is something that isn't country related. So you can't, or it's very difficult to say to a country like, okay, deal with your own problems, because if there's a country in the north, for example, like I know that the Scandinavian countries are very focused on environmentally friendly progress, as they're also being educated very well in this topic. If they are going to spend an X percentage of their GDP on the environment, that does not mean that a country as, for example, as my own country, as a country as Belgium will follow this instruction, because emission is something that has externalities. It won't stay in Finland despite then, or it won't stay in Belgium despite us not investing or not setting aside any percentage of our GDP for the environment. It will go to France, it will go to Spain, and so on and so on. Especially if you also look at these lower income countries, like, can we even to invest the same percentage of their GDP on the environment? Because now with the COVID crisis, it's something that a lot of countries will also be dealing with, and a lot of countries will be in a crisis with. So therefore, I do hope that the West is going to take responsibility. However, I do have my doubts that the West will be this comfortable with doing this, as of course we all know that we are in a very strong economic crisis because of COVID. However, I do hope that that especially maybe the Scandinavian countries are going to put more pressure on the richer Western European countries and America to stimulate the historical emission taxations for this. So that's one of my hopes and one of the recommendations I would make if I would be in Glasgow, representing or finding a solution for this problem.
Okay.
And plus, maybe also like I know that there's also a lot of companies starting to focus on a more efficient way of generating energy by green energy. For example, all the windmills that are in the sea. There's a very well, I won't call it easy, but there's a very efficient way how you can increase the number of energy that is awoken by these windmills by just creating some kind of donut around the windmill at the bottom of it, so that therefore the waves also generate energy. Like if I would have a board, I could show how the engineering concept is. And I hope that countries are being stimulated to subsidize this, as this will be good for the economy. More companies will start, more R&D will begin, and this is good for the environment. So I hope that countries get incentive to subsidize these this R&D, as it also has a large cost, of course. At the beginning, everything costs a lot of money, but therefore I would recommend that there is some kind of incentive for these countries to subsidize these sectors so that they can improve their economy and be more environmentally friendly by just launching this new product. And what is happening right now is something that I believe is a good thing. Like the gas prices are rising, the wood prices are rising, the oil prices are rising, and I think this is the start of a potential good incentive, as everything is becoming, or the non-environmentally friendly energy sources are becoming more expensive, and I think this may be the start of an incentive for these countries how to deal with these rising prices by making green energy more attractable for their society, for the people in their country.
Thank you, Steve, for your take. Remantia, are you with us? I think she lost her connection. So, Steve, you have been trotting different continents, say Latin American perspective, the European perspective is quite different from Latin American perspective.
Yeah.
And also climate change politics, political economy of climate change is also different from different perspectives, from the perspective of the southern countries, from the perspective of, say, small island developing states or least developed countries and developed countries. Say Latin American countries, African countries, Asian countries. and versus European countries or North American are quite different. So how do you find those converts and have a landing ground in, say, Glasgow, in climate front? Uh, is there any hope? Because future say life of the lifestyle of the future generation depends on uh, this political economy.
Well, I believe there must always be optimism and always be hope. However, it's not going to be easy. As I mentioned, with the R&D and the economic crisis that we're in right now, it's very difficult to ask this to the lower income countries, because it's an unfair game. I believe it's unfair competition. It's like economies of scale. It's the richer or the higher income countries, they can produce at a way lower cost. It's the same concept, whilst these lower income countries are still at a higher cost, and it's a higher cost for their economy. It would come at a larger price. And so how do they do this with company? If we look at microeconomics, well, they subsidize them so that they can compete with these lower income or the economies of scale, the larger companies. That's what they do on microeconomic base. And so if we then would look at macroeconomics, how can we do that? Well, we can propose that it's the same concept as in or higher income countries would give subsidies to the lower income countries. However, in theory, that would be a fair solution. In practice, I believe this would be something very difficult to achieve, as I doubt that a lot of higher income countries will be very enthusiastic doing this, especially because the more right-wing parties are becoming more popular these days. So it is, when we're talking about hope, it is going to be difficult. However, I do believe that there is a ring that every country is hearing this ring of or as having this bell of how to word it or how to phrase it, of panic in a certain, well, it's not panic, but the ring is alerting people that there is coming a change. So what my hope is that these higher income countries show empathy and show realization that this is a case of teamwork and not focusing on own individual perspectives. It's not maximizing your country's utility, to put it that way. It's maximizing the world's utility. It's maximizing what's best for the world. And my hope would then be, look, we've been in a crisis that we've all been in this past year. It was the COVID-19 crisis. Some countries have suffered more from it than others. And surprise, surprise, the countries that suffered more from it are the lower income countries, again. And I just hope that us Western countries are going to show the empathy that is required for this solution, and are going to, as I mentioned, focus on their own country and investing in R&D, etc., but also focus on helping these lower income countries. with the lower income countries, of course, in particular countries, there's a high level of corruption. There's a high level of promises that are not being fulfilled. It's the same in a lot of countries. So I hope that maybe an incentive can be given to countries where corruption is known to be high. And when these countries fulfill these requirements, that then the higher income countries must say, okay, look, you've achieved what we required, hence now we'll give you this subsidy that we promised you. That's, I'd say, what my hope would be, or my optimism would be, regarding the different perspective and the different levels of countries. Yeah.
So, we'll see. Say nowadays we are hearing that some people saying nature-based solutions, but again, for nature-based solutions, do you think there is adequate opportunities for the smaller countries, for the southern countries, for the low-income countries to go for that?
So you're asking me whether I believe that there's an education probability for. That's a good question, because I think that's maybe also one of the major problems that people in the world are having, that people are not realizing enough what of a problem this may be and how fast this may come. As right now, well, in a lot of countries, water is already a problem. Look at 20 years from now, and it will be a major problem. But if we would therefore have to focus on the education, I would not require it from lower income countries. I would not. However, from higher income countries, I would. But I just believe that these lower income countries already realize in a certain way, like they already realize that water is something that they're struggling with. And I don't think that it would contribute a lot towards the solution of global warming.
That means, say, Osti, that means, say, for renewable energy, you need lot of investment, lot of research, lot of innovations. Yeah. And you know, the developing countries, the southern countries, small island states, low-income countries, LDCs, they are resource constrained. So they are here also marginalized. And also for nature-based solutions, they are again marginalized. That means income inequalities between developed north and developing south is going to be widening in the years to come in any way. Even in the best scenario, income inequalities is going to stay. Rather, it will be complicated. It will be more deteriorating one, depressing one. So how to say reverse that trend, reverse that by raising ambition in the northern countries, especially technology transfer and also R&D and also intellectual property right that is a hindrance. So globalization, and also it has negative adverse impacts. And also climate change is also promoting or quadrupling income inequalities. So how to solve it? How to resolve it? How to approach it?
Yeah, good point. Very good aspect, because of course, like with education, you create human capital, and that then will resolve itself in having maybe better capital for the environment and decreasing inequality over time. But on the other hand, what I believe that should be done first is promoting the economy, as I believe if we would focus on education right now, and I still believe that there are too many incentives of not sending your children to school because of the climate change. Like I did a research about the effect of water on children's school enrollment. And what I found was the further away or the less access people have to water sources, the more likely children will be taken out of school and then fulfill the job of the mother to go and collect water, as there was also an increase in the female labor force participation. And so therefore, I believe like you can increase the, like, for example, you can give incentives for families to send their children to school, which could work. However, I don't know any papers on top of my head from this. This should be maybe something I should dig into before making a statement about it. However, my hypothesis is that it would not be an extreme increase, but this may be wrong. I need to, like, so I don't want to make an actual statement about this. But what I hypothesize would be more efficient is first making sure that there is more water provision, for example, that there would be a closer water source to the families, so that therefore the child does not have to be taken out of school to replace the mother's job. And I'm saying the mother in this case because it's often in these lower income countries that the women are in charge of this. So my perspective would be first invest in stimulating this economy by microfinance, maybe by, like, there are multiple ways, by increasing maybe the budget that has to be well, partially increasing and partially focusing on the more efficient ways of increasing the aid for these countries, and especially looking at history, I'd say. Like if I'm comparing my own country, like I know Belgium is a high income country. And why is that? Well, there are multiple reasons for that, but one of the reasons is that we colonized Congo during our, or in our history, and I believe that we still definitely have a need to repay them. Congo right now is one of the poorest countries in the world. It's definitely in the top 10 of lowest GDP per capita. And that's partially, like, I'm not saying it's full, like it's full, but it's partially because of what the Belgians did. And so therefore, I believe that the EU has to focus on this. But then, of course, you've got the other argument. If the EU is going to do that, these past years, the EU has become less popular. The UK has stepped out. Poland and Hungary had troubles with the EU with their proposals. Now, if you would, as a union, say, okay, you have to do this, I believe a lot of countries will have an incentive of saying, well, I don't care, I don't want to do this. I want to leave out, or I want to step out. Another aspect I believe that could be useful for this is stimulating the African Union. It was created a couple of years ago as well, and I believe that's a step in the good direction. Working as a team is always more efficient as working as an individual. So yeah, I believe that can be a thing.
Yeah, I think.
So what's your perspective on education? What's your perspective on?
I think, yeah, even in Paris Agreement, there is a lot of emphasis on education, awareness, research. And without education, we simply can't help out, because education is the basics of more research, more innovation. Say, education gives people empowerment. Education gives people innovation. The better your education system, the better you can compare, you can innovate, you can discover a lot of things. You can find a lot of solutions through education. Without education, you are walking in the dark, in the middle of the night. So education is enlightenment. Education is enlightenment. Education is a beacon. But say developing countries, many of them don't have, say, 100% literacy, don't have, say, good schooling system. Many countries deprived of education, empowerment. So that requires lot of resources for generating education in the developing countries, in the southern countries. As you have narrated how Congo is the, say, poorest of the poor country, and Belgium is one of the richest countries. My own Bangladesh was one of the richest part of the world when British came to conquer. And after 1757, after the Battle of Palashi, our king lost and they conquered. We are 8th largest exporting country at that point of time of history. Now, we are not 8th richest country, not even 80th. So that is the economy change of the whole economic atlas, economic development map change altogether. So whole African continent conquered by different European countries, different nations, even South America, Asian countries are conquered. many countries. So colonization, colonialism at that time ruled, and say oil was accumulated and transferred to different continents. So Wealth of Nations, when Adam Smith say had written it, then the economy was quite different than it is now. So that is the root cause of climatic changes. See, even carbon emission, carbon politics. So how to come out of this vicious cycle of carbon emission? Like we have to come out of, say, vicious cycle of poverty, illiteracy. So this is what we need to resolve. We need to sort it out once for all for the mankind, for this planet, for Mother Earth, because we have only one planet. It should be protected. We have to conserve, but our biodiversity is lost almost. Our land is being degraded. Our air is being polluted. Even our oceans are being degraded. So we need to have nature-based solutions. Look for nature-based solutions. Look for sending coal to the museum. So that way we need to go for a Glasgow summit to make it more successful. What is your last word? Closing remark.
But so you're from the perspective that that with education, this is one of the more efficient ways of doing this, or because I do agree with you that investing in education will lead to innovation, and which will increase the economy at the long term. But do we have enough time for this? Because education, it will again be the more it will again be the richer who get access to this, as the poor will need to I believe a lot of the poor people won't be capable of staying in education, as it will their families will require a larger income to fulfill or will sustain their families. I believe children will be taken out of school at a particular age, or they'll have to do jobs that their mother can't do anymore, or their father. But so then when you mention education, would you say incentivize the people by giving them money to go to school, etc., or what, or just invest more in the universities to then for the higher income part of that country to then go there? Or would you say I want the lower income country to, or I would the lower part of the population to be more incentivized of going to school?
Yeah. One way to incentivize the lower portion of the population, a lower income group. We have to incentivize that. We have to promote that. We have to make investment over there. And also general education, higher education, research, because higher education is a state of research, innovations. So we have to also promote that. So that way, and also developing countries and developed countries, they also there should be also exchange of exchange programs, collaborations between say different universities, say Oxford University, Cambridge University, or say Zurich University, or say Paris University, with Dhaka University, with say Cape Town University, or just Town University, or a university in Congo. That way we need to look for more innovation, more education, more collaboration, more research, more say nature-based solutions, more renewable energies, more say green growth, promoting say instruments, education, support. So that. So thank you very much. It was great to. It was a pleasure to have a conversation at Climate Channel, climate conversation in its episode 48 with you. Would say Connings. It was a very wonderful experience to have you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was nice talking, and yeah.
Thank you.
See you next time. Yeah, bye bye.
Thank you.